And we are recording Mr. Leighton Gray on Monday, November 4th, 2024 at 10:08 Eastern time to really, like I just told you, talk about anything we want because the best ones are the shows that have no guidelines. And as I told you, I'm going to awkwardly do, and as I now awkwardly am doing, I'm going to post a live link around. Guys, and for everybody listening, you can go to the description, you can find the link to your podcast. Mr. Gray, please introduce yourself, sir.
Hi, yeah, my name's Leighton Gray. It's great to be on the program. I've been looking forward to our conversation.
So in terms of just, I don't know, let's start with gray matter and my own kind of interest back in college. I went to the University of Georgia, got a biology degree. I never took the class, but I read the book, Neuropsychopharmacology. I got into medical school. I wanted to be an anesthesiologist. I got in, then decided I didn't want to go, and infinite time later, I'm here. And I just started reading. Let me find who the author is. I just started listening yesterday or the day before to Super Intelligence by Nick Bostrom. And
Mm.
in general, when I was reading the neuropsychopharmacology book, I thought it was very interesting because I would say be reading about stimulants,
Mhm.
caffeine, Ritalin, whatever. And, I would drink coffee while I was reading it. And I'd be reading about adenosine receptors and caffeine increasing, focus and retention as I'm using caffeine to increase. And it was just this kind of, I really understood then and there, like the idea of recursive intelligence, right?
Mhm.
AI
Mhm.
teaching itself. Reading
Mhm.
this book right now, it's kind of the same, but it's the same thing, but as opposed to, let's say, nutraceuticals, it's about, software or, it'll be able to make sub nanometer transistors or whatever. Is this an inevitability that we birth? I think Marshall McLuhan said we are the sex organs of the machine world. Is it inevitability that we birth super intelligence, hyper intelligence, whatever you want to call it, in the same way you could go back to, the first singular cell and multicellular organisms and say, given enough time, that'll become somebody walking on the moon? Is that an inevitability?
Well, first of all, it's nice of you to quote a Canadian thinker, Marshall McLuhan, famous for saying, the medium is the message.
Yeah, the digital camera.
Yeah, yeah, but much, his thought goes much beyond that, and I think that people like McLuhan foresaw where we are right now. But I think you're onto something in that. This is the march of human endeavor. This is a march of uh, of human ingenuity that we're always going back. And people who are not Christians or don't read the Bible maybe won't like this, but the reality is the endeavor of the human endeavor from the very beginning was to make of ourselves gods.
Hmm.
And for example, you just consider Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. You can see where that can go wrong, but the excitement, the thrill of doing that is something that I think is irresistible to people, and it also leads to great leaps forward. For example, 1969, Man on the Moon, or just recently, anybody who saw that rocket
Yeah.
land itself, that I mean, could that even be done without artificial intelligence? I don't know. Arguably not. I suspect that there's a lot of AI going into a project like that, and it's going to make a lot of things possible that were possibly inconceivable and not so long ago. And so happen to think it's very exciting. It's also very frightening because, of course, the malicious applications of AI, the mendacity of that in the minds of some people who would misuse it. Again, coming back to my Frankenstein example, have we created a monster and trying to recreate ourselves and sort of create a new life form? Have we created something that is destructive and evil? That's a very interesting philosophical question, isn't it?
It is, and it almost seems, it's like, I think, I don't know which Terminator it is, second one, the third one, where he
Oh,
he leads them to an old Cold War bunker, says
yeah.
go here, and I just continuity of government is like one of my favorite things. I just, as like somebody with clinical OCD, I just love the idea. Most people are like, it's thermonuclear war, it's hell. I'm like, it's so well planned. You have to respect it. It's just, it's you got to respect that. You got to respect the end times. But he leads them to it, and then the nukes go off, and they're kind of looking at each other like, I thought we were supposed to avert Judgment Day. And like the kind of the narrator at the end is like, you were never going to avert Judgment Day. The goal was to survive it. And
Mm,
I look at that now where it's like, let's take nuclear weapons. All right, existential risk. Even an accidental launch could. There's so many war games and just psyops one through not the psychological ops, but SIOP. Was it Singular Integrated Operations Plan for nuclear war? It's all. I mean, it's been X happens, Y happens. It's almost lockstep. It would happen so quick. Well, then why don't we just get rid of them? Well,
mhm,
you could be the quote unquote bigger man and get rid of yours. How sure are you that the other guy's going to get rid of his? Well, then why were they started in the first place? Well, there was a total war that the world never seen before, and it ended it. Okay. So there was a reason to get it. Did we immediately take the blue? Did we shoot all the scientists involved, take the blueprints, burn them, and say this is forbidden heresy? No, before it was even over, there was moles giving it to the KGB or whatever preceded it. In that same way, it might not be that someone's necessarily going, we need hyper intelligent AI, knowing full well it could take over the world and kill us, but rather it's probably incremental increases. And
mhm.
for instance, I taught myself between 2016 and 2020, I taught myself Photoshop by myself. And you can see some of the prints I have. There's an alien one, there's
Oh, wow.
some cherubs. That one's a heroin needle, and the bubbles are social media icons. And I just
Amazing.
loved it.
Bravo.
Fun. Thank you. It was fun. Did it on an iPad. Cutting stuff out with the whatever, the Apple Pencil. You could take days if you're going in at 8K resolution and zooming in and you wanted it to be perfect, take days. Now on my phone, the Photoshop Express app just has you can just highlight something and just say take that out. Cuts it out immediately. That's where AI comes in. It's not me
Mm,
going, I think a computer should be in charge of our intercontinental ballistic missiles. No, instead it's somebody like, let's say it was me, let's say I was still doing Photoshop, I'd be like, well, I can make more designs now, and that gives me a leg up, and that gives me the ability to perhaps be financially viable. Yeah, I'm going to use this. Well,
mhm.
okay, well, does the app cost money? Yeah, it does. Okay, so now I am now showing that there is a demand that I'm willing to pay US dollars for to use AI. They're going, hey, people are willing to pay for this. Apply that to every industry, to people shipping frozen hot dogs, to, you know, construction, to kindergarten safe scissors, to Tic Tacs, and then apply that upwards over not just months, but decades. It's almost like, I forget who said it, but it's almost like the omega point. Something is pulling us towards it.
Mhm, mhm.
Do you think that it's less of a, I think it'll be in something like in hindsight, where like you said, we could look at it and be like, well, this is much like Frankenstein, where we want to become gods. But in the moment, it's not you and I doing this. Why would I pay for somebody to transcribe my podcast? I could just upload it to YouTube and hit closed captions.
Mhm,
Do you
mhm.
think that's kind of more what it's like, or not? You can, I don't care.
No, I think that's a great question. And one of the things that people who are resistant to AI, I think, need to understand is that I don't think there's ever been more investment in any product or idea than has gone into AI. I believe it's in the trillions of dollars. I was speaking to my broker about this, and I trust his opinion. He said that really this is like a pregnant rain cloud, in that we really haven't seen AI, the full effect of AI, the way we saw the introduction of, the internet, or say social media, or other big sort of transcendent events in the history of technology, recent and just in recent memory. So I think we're going to see AI is going to have a huge impact, but we haven't really seen it. I think we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg right now. I think most of what AI is going to be and how it's going to affect our lives is sort of below the waterline, but it's coming. And it's going to be very fascinating to see how that unfolds. I think to answer your question, I think it's going to be a bit of both. I think it's going to be a tool, just like any tool. Well, think of an axe. Well,
Mhm.
to a woodsman, an axe is a useful thing for chopping down trees. To an axe murderer, right?
Yeah.
And so finish the thought. I think that's what AI is. I think it's going to be a tool in the hands of someone like you, who is an artist and a creator and a thinker. It's going to be something very useful that you can use to create graphic art or to perfect podcasts or things like that. But to people, the kind of people who populate the World Economic Forum, I'm not so sure that AI is something that can be trusted in their hands. But it's like anything, and this is the exciting part. We really don't know what it's going
Yeah.
to be. This is the exciting thing about AI. We know it's here. We can see the potential, good and bad, and how will it all unfold? I mean, history will tell the tale, right?
Yeah. No, like I'm sure you're aware of Ray Kurzweil, and
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the OG, and one of his, I was a normal kid. I was reading that book instead of going to prom, but he talks about the in the
You might have
singularity.
been a little nerdy.
Yeah, it was, yeah, I literally didn't. Yeah, I was just not in. And I'm still not interested in prom. I'm like, nah, clearly I haven't moved. It's 15 years later, and I'm like, let's talk about the AI. But he described it as a tsunami. And it's like, let's say you
Hmm.
just observed a tsunami from space from the time the tectonic plates
Yeah.
shifted, pushed the water up to
Yeah.
the time it crashes on the shore. Let's just call it whatever, 10 hours or 100 minutes, whatever, just something clean. 99.999%, or maybe not 999, 99.9% of its lifetime from the plates, water, moving, unless you have a satellite and unless you are looking for it, like let's say you're I don't know, an AI forecaster, but the rest of us just simpletons, unless you're looking for it and until it hits buoys for 99% of its life, you don't even really know it's there. A couple people are looking at it and they're going, is that a mountable? What is that?
Hmm.
As it gets closer, you can kind of start to, right? The birds fly away, the water level drops. But even then, you're less than 1% of its life until it's here. Then it hits and it's, 500,000 dead.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
internet was the same thing.
Hmm.
ARPANET to DARPANET to whatever it became. I was born in 1990, in the 2000s. It's like, yeah, we're learning, how to cite sources up to now where you and I are talking on this thing that I'm, uploading in 4K 60 FPS without a hiccup.
Hmm.
AI is the same thing in
Hmm.
that unless you are specifically looking for it, or let's say an overnight sensation, like a Tom Brady or a Kobe Bryant, it's like, yeah, and headhunters saw them back in high school. But to the rest of us, we're like, who's this new guy? But his overnight success was decades in the making.
Hmm. Hmm.
In that same sense, it almost kind of feels like so early 2000s, it's like, let's go to Reddit or eBaum's World or early YouTube or funny videos or, Flash Player, Newgrounds, whatever. But even that was 40 years into it. In the same way, how is it now coming down to the average person? Chat GPT, image generators. Here's Thomas Jefferson singing along to, Remix to Ignition by, R. Kelly. That means it's here, though. That
Yeah.
means it's crashing, and there's not much to do other than, I suppose, try to co-opt it and, I don't know, beat out the other guy. But
Mm.
it kind of seems like the hand's been dealt to us.
No, I think you're right. It's a little bit like, the old story about the man who's looking outside. He's going to go for a walk, and it looks like it might rain, and leaves his coat behind. It's not raining very hard, and he goes a few blocks and he's soaked. There's sort of an imperceptible quality to AI that I find personally, I'm not looking for it, but I keep bumping into it. It's almost become ubiquitous in the legal profession. I can tell you the many applications that it has to save time, to save money. Um, it is truly incredible. The one thing that is a concern, I guess, should be a concern is how is it going to impact people who are not in a position, let's say, are outside of the quote unquote laptop class, who really cannot make use of it in commercial means, and in fact are hurt by it. People like, I don't know, paralegals, who are not going to be needed to draft legal documents because ChatGPT can do it in a heartbeat. Um, what are the downstream impacts of that technology? Of course, we've been through this before, right? It happened in the early industrial revolution. It happened with automation. It's happening now with robots doing a lot of jobs in factories, for Amazon, packing boxes that people used to do. So I suppose we're going to all get through it, but it is worrisome to think about what are the impacts on the other side, because if we don't have, in North America, places like the United States and Canada, we've been working class societies, right? We've been societies of workers. And what is life going to be like when we're not societies of workers? Or how are we going to adapt to becoming workers who are sort of working alongside with or in tandem with technologies like AI? These are really fascinating things. And I don't know the answers, but I have to say, sometimes it keeps me awake at night.
Yeah, I find myself kind of going through I think it was Khrushchev when he first got into office.
Hmm.
He said, once I learned about the destructive power of our hydrogen bombs, because you can't really tell when you look at a video of a nuke. They all kind of look this mushroom cloud. But I always
Hmm.
tell people, look at an A bomb testing, you always see it's in a desert with mountains behind it. Look at a hydrogen bomb testing, it's always in the ocean. There's nothing to compare it to. It's like scale independent. It is
Right.
Hiroshima was bad. It's nothing. And he said once he learned about these, he goes, I couldn't sleep for days. And then it dawned on me one day that we could never use them. And I slept like a baby. That's kind of how
Hmm.
I am with like the AI. I'm like, it's
Hmm.
that I'm like, it's there's no way to fight it. It's gonna. And then another part of me is less like Khrushchev, like we'll never use it, but more so it's so beyond my reach that I should pretty much just enjoy my life. And I don't mean like roll over, and I don't mean nihilism or defeatism. I hate that stuff so
Right.
much. But
Right.
more so like, you know, I could lose sleep over it last night, or I could get 8 hours, hit the gym, shower, clean clothes, do my meditation and prayer, come on here and be the best host I can be. Right?
Hmm.
It's
Hmm. Hmm.
That's kind of how I look at it is like, yeah, man, it's probably happening. And the investment thing, I don't know if you read, I read an article earlier this year and I show it to everyone. I probably sound like a religious fanatic. It's called Situational Awareness by Leopold Aschenbrenner. I'll send it to you if you haven't read it.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's a several hour read. I'm also a very slow reader, so I don't know. The reason why it's so pertinent to me is it's not hyping it up. Like in the future, we'll have flying car. It seems to be a pretty kind of cold just examination of it. It's not, it's also not a resistance to it.
Right. Yeah.
But what he
Yeah.
talks about at the beginnings is what you said, and it's really the most important. It's like my dad, right? I was telling my dad about, the podcast and the subscribers and he just, as a father of four that supports a family, he just goes, how much money is it making? Just kind of cuts through all of it. How much money? I'm like, it's paying rent. And he's like, good. My mom's like every subscriber. She's like, you got another one. My dad's like, money, money, good. Okay. Right. Just cuts through the bullshit. In that sense, Aschenbrenner does as well. Just at the get-go. It's like,
Mhm.
where's the money coming in? Amazon, Google, Tesla, they're all buying up or renting nuclear reactors
Yeah.
to power the superclusters. To me, that alone that's the indicator. That's where
Hmm.
we're going, and
Do
it's
you
no
think there's
longer
a do you think there's a mutually assured destruction component? You talked about Khrushchev
absolutely.
and why he slept. Do you think that's true with AI, or is it a situation where we could get into a war game situation where maybe our AI is better than yours? We have a leg up. We're going to use it. I'll give you an example. I was reading a book recently about decisions that Adolf Hitler could have made if he wasn't high on meth.
Yeah, perfect.
One of them
Yeah,
is he had the V1, V2 rockets, and he decided that because he was vengeful, because he was probably high, he sent those to London to cause, just to destroy homes and apartment buildings and churches. But if he had sent those in 1944 to Plymouth, he might have prevented the D-Day invasion, right? So that's an example of he had that technology ahead of us, ahead of the Allies, but didn't use it properly. But what if somebody had AI and they had the equivalent AI of the V1 or V2 rocket, and they used it properly and malevolently? I mean, is there a mutually assured destruction component to AI that would prevent, the Cyberdyne systems from the Terminator analogy, from that metaphor? What do you think about that?
Uh, there's a book you should read called Blitz by Norman Ohler. Talks all about meth in the Third Reich. I've had him on here. I can put you in touch with him.
Yeah,
He talks
yeah.
about Pervitin and
Perverton, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and I think Dunkirk, who was in charge of the Luftwaffe, Goering, Mooring,
Goring, yeah,
Goering,
yeah.
yeah.
Another guy had some drug problems. Yeah,
Well, apparently German ground forces were able to reach that beach and could have just slaughtered everyone.
yeah, yeah.
Goering was cozying up to Hitler, and he said, "I want this to be a Luftwaffe victory." And
Mhm.
so Hitler told the ground forces to lay off
Yeah.
because the Luftwaffe wanted. Hitler was on meth. Goering had they called him Murring because he would wake up and do morphine every day. Like it does change history. But to mutual assured destruction, yes. In the same way that it was when Gary Kasparov got beat by Deep Blue or
Right,
AlphaGo,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's not that they had better chess pieces or better Go pieces. They're the same pieces. They were just a better tactician. The AI was.
Hmm. Hmm.
Well, in that same sense, let's say China, which spends about a third on their defense budget as we do, but
Hmm.
we've been spending way more than that for way longer. So we have a much larger built up kind of global spanning system. If
Right.
you're China, right, there's different ways to attack a existing hegemon, bioweapons, cyber, drug, cultural, whatever
Ideology.
ideology. Yeah. If you had just one aircraft carrier and whatever, well, if you had a better tactician, you might actually be able to go toe to toe with the US if you just had a better, AI
Right.
admiral,
Yeah.
which forces them to dump as much money as they can into it, which
Mhm.
forces us to dump as much money as we can into it, forces Russia, India, and then like the A bomb, a couple or one country or two countries will put, in the A bomb case, the US, will put all of the money and resources into developing it, and then everyone else can kind of leech off of it, where now it's a known technology.
Mhm.
I think what will happen is you'll probably have China and or the US, we probably already have, build out these systems in a mutual assured destruction manner, which will then bleed out to other countries. And in that sense, that's the silver lining. We'll all be kind of neck and neck.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
I also think of like, the people that I should say the power elite in the US. They would control JSOC, and you'd have indirectly control of Delta Force and DevGru.
Right.
The people controlling them are not even more efficient killers. They're often out of shape politicians, but they have good
Hmm.
intellect.
Yeah.
You want them to be the most lethal fighting force to kill your enemies, but you also, I'd imagine, there's probably an unspoken tactic about making sure Delta Force never kills you. If I
Hmm.
have a pet bear that I use to attack you, I got to make sure the bear doesn't eat me. AI isn't a bear, it's like a mile tall dragon. And you
Hmm.
want it because China's got a three-quarters of a mile tall dragon, and Russia's got a half a mile tall dragon. So we have our mile tall dragon. We don't want the dragon to turn on us,
Right.
which means you'd have to instill, and this is at least my theory, some form of like Asimov's three laws to not
Mhm.
hurt humans or to minimize as much human collateral as possible. If those are all coded into these theoretical hyper AIs, I think eventually the AIs would actually probably benefit the people at large. because
Mhm.
they would look at the entire world. They'd have access to every camera, node, microphone, and they have access to all classified communications and insider trading and corruption. And they'd go, this 1% is actually hurting the 99%. Not to sound like a total Marxist, but
Mhm.
it might actually be in the AI's coding to take out the very elite that created them, because the elite coded into
Ooh,
them out of their own self-preservation as off laws because they're like, I don't want this thing to kill me. I'm trying to take over the world.
you got a great theme
Well,
for a sci-fi novel right there. You should.
that's what I've been thinking. Well, no, I've really been thinking that. And then to go really far out, I mean, what if you have blackmail? We know that
Mhm.
historically, I mean, Nick Bryant, the Franklin scandal.
Yeah.
It's not fantastical. It is, the US has done it. We do it all the time.
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
effective blackmail is getting people of power, senators, CEOs, admirals,
Mhm.
whatever, on tape having sexual relations with people under 18. In the
Mhm.
more horrific cases, children.
Mhm. Interesting.
That
You're sort
blackmail
of,
is,
yeah,
sorry,
you're sort of
that
drawing
black,
this analogy. Yeah, you're drawing this analogy between, the nuclear
well, what if the
weapons,
AI has access to that blackmail and
right?
it's going,
Yeah.
they're hurting
Yeah.
children? And it
Yeah.
might not be some, oh, the AI is
Hmm.
the white knight. It could literally just be a cold calculating machine, like a thermal missile.
Hmm.
It's not like it doesn't necessarily feel for the children. It's just going, my coding says to minimize human collateral. And there are people who are not only hurting the rest of the world, they're also hurting one another by hurting children as blackmail. It might just look at it as simply as a target acquisition and say, those nodes are creating the most harm.
Yeah.
This unelected elite, this unelected elite, this oligarch, this
Hmm.
mob boss, this it might wipe them all out without a second thought.
Hmm.
We'll have
Hmm.
no idea.
I wonder if they've thought of that. But this is an interesting metaphor you've created where maybe AI has an Oppenheimer effect. Uh, the idea being that the nukes being weapons of mass destruction actually prevented further war, arguably prevented bloodshed because we have not had a full-blown global conflict on the scale of World War II since the advent of the nuclear weapon. But coming back to something you said about China having an AI general, does America have one? I was thinking the other day
Absolutely.
about the military applications of everything that Elon Musk is doing. Okay, we've
Yes.
got the battery powered cars, we've got the rockets. The military application of those is pretty obvious.
NRO,
He's
NSA,
got the AI robots and Starlink, and
and
of course the satellite system nowadays. My understanding of the American weaponry system is that most of it is based upon space, that it's controlled from space through satellites. So here's a guy who has his own set of satellites.
uh,
Is Elon Musk America's AI general?
well, you didn't
Uh,
mention Neuralink.
and he is the force for good. And we didn't even mention X. I mean, he's
No,
the
you didn't mention Neuralink, the thing you
yeah,
could
yeah,
viably say he
exactly,
is AI.
exactly. I mean, so is Elon Musk a force for good, or is he potentially going to be, Genghis Khan?
Is it a force of power?
Yeah,
I tend to think
yeah.
it's power. It's not,
He's
it's,
trying to have as many children as Genghis Khan, it
he
seems.
is. He really is. It makes, did you ever read Watchmen or by Alan Moore, the graphic novel?
No, I've heard
Yeah,
about it.
yeah,
I've
yeah,
heard
yeah,
about it.
yeah, yeah. Dr. Manhattan's like Superman times a trillion.
Yeah,
And he comes out and he just happens to be an American citizen and like an American creation. So like we
yeah,
have him. It
yeah.
was just kind of luck of the draw that we have him. That's kind
Hmm.
of how I'm trying to look less at like politicians and CEOs and movers and shakers on the planet as good guys or bad guys. I'm trying to move away from what I feel is my own childish view of things. Instead, try to look at it as just pragmatic. What are they? They're powerful people, and you know, I always say this: I don't really have anything in common with like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk,
Right.
nor do I Klaus Schwab and whoever. But one group of billionaires kind of wants to depopulate the planet and put us all in pods, and the
Hmm.
other, for their own financial reasons. They can't kill the golden goose. They want to, Bezos and Musk want their names, written in the stars as space, discoverers, space Columbus. So they want the US to succeed.
Yeah. Yeah.
My interests align with them. I also
Mm.
don't want to live in a pod, you
Yeah.
know. I'm not a trillionaire and I don't have a space program. But if they want the US to thrive for their own selfish reasons, well, hey, I have my own selfish reasons too. I don't want the US to, I don't know, undergo a foreign implemented collapse. So I think it's more of aligning things. But to answer your question, does America have their own? I would say absolutely. And
Hmm.
it's probably more than one. We probably have a purely AI one, and then we also have an Elon one where he's plugged in a Neuralink and he's using that. And I don't know. I think it's probably more of like Dr. Manhattan, where like he
Yeah.
just happens to be American. And
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
take the
Yeah.
win. You won the coin toss. Take the win.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
How do you think this impacts this little thing that's going on tomorrow in your country, presidential election? What do you think how would the Democrats use AI as opposed to, the Trump camp? Or would it be the same? What do you think about that?
Use it for the election or use it as
Use
an
it
as a regime.
as a regime. Because we've seen some pretty malevolent stuff from the Democrats.
Yeah, and
Um,
yeah, no, and I mean, listen, they're demons from hell. I always try. I'm more conservative leading. I always try to check my opinions at the door when I do a show. You don't have to. You're allowed to. You're the guest. From
I'm
well,
at least as conservative
okay,
as
oh,
you are. Plus,
okay,
I'm a Christian.
yeah. Well,
So
same. I mean, I literally pray before every show, but for me personally, one, it's just I don't think it makes for good conversation if we have two people who are both like, believing red good. I also think red is good. You like red meat, to me intellectually it's weak. So
yeah,
just like I go to the gym every day, I always try to push back on my own beliefs to at least grow somewhere. So
right.
in
Yeah,
that sense, to
yeah.
play that, no, I think my knee-jerk reaction is again, I don't think I have a whole lot in common with Donald Trump. He's a billionaire. He's 5 decades older than me. He lives in a gold penthouse in the sky. Like, but he seems to want not even a strong, but an existing border. When he became president in 2016, the economy jumped $1.2 trillion before he was even inaugurated.
Mhm.
He didn't start any new wars.
Yeah.
Those kind of basic things. I'm 34. My whole life, I
Hmm.
never really wanted a family, but in the last couple of years, I've felt my brain change, and I would like a wife and kids. I would like to live a normal life.
Hmm.
I don't,
Hmm.
sure, I have my dreams and all that stuff, but I'm also okay with, I don't say just, it's a beautiful thing, just being a dad and then one day a grandpa and then kicking the bucket and trying to make the world a little better.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Leave
In
something
that
behind.
sense, yeah, in that sense, my interests align with what happens to be a Republican candidate and what happens to be a billionaire named Elon Musk. It just happens to align with them. I
Hmm.
don't think they're evil, but I also those are my own. I know my biases come into play. In that
Hmm.
sense, I want them to win, not even for some grandiose. Everything's going to be fixed. Nothing's ever going to be fixed like that. I don't have that illusion. But it seems like one group is pretty focused on literally dissolving this country and destroying it because it is the strongest bulwark against globalism.
Right.
And the other one is for all of their corruption, all of their flaws, uh they want the country to exist and persist, which hey,
Hmm.
I want to, not because I'm a spacefaring trillionaire, but because I'm 34 and don't want to die in a civil war. So
Hmm.
how would they use it? So that's my own, those are my own opinions and biases. But now to try to detach myself from it and just look at it
Yeah.
as coldly as possible, to a degree, they would both use it to their own ends. We would see kind of on the fringes. The Democrats would use it to, I don't know, automate. I'm not even trying to be funny, but they'd automate, I don't know, like drug injection sites in left-leaning
Hmm.
cities, automate, gun registration and tracking. And the right would probably be more so, automating free speech on Twitter, automating pushing Rumble as a competitor to YouTube, automating Border Patrol, automating, in that sense. What I
Hmm.
think 95% of it will be is the military industrial intelligence complex just that seems to just push forward regardless of who's I'm not even trying to be
Right. Yeah.
edgy and be like, well,
Yeah.
the president doesn't run it. No, the president does have a degree of
Hmm.
control, but I think there's an inertia, whether or not there's some cabal of people in a dark room or whether it's an emergent phenomena, there's undeniably a central force
Hmm.
from Eisenhower's military industrial complex to Smedley Butler to Woodrow Wilson talking about. There's a quote from I think 1919. There's I'm gonna butcher it, but there's a group so powerful with so much control, who's so consolidated and so quick in their movements that the leaders of the U.S. industry dare not speak of it above a whisper. So I mean, this goes back
Hmm.
to at the very least Woodrow Wilson,
Yeah.
whether or not it's a bunch of guys in cloaks at Bohemian Grove or you know it's just kind of some Wall Street execs, trading hard drives away from nearby phones. I think the
Hmm.
majority of its implementation would probably be identical, Trump or Kamala, and it's
Hmm.
going to be the big ones. It's going to be the ones that really control the outcome of humanity, and the rest is going to be low-hanging fruit. It's going to be big things. Resource extraction. Is there oil in the Middle East? Are there rare earth minerals we need for computer chips for AI? Is Taiwan a valuable asset? It'll be the behemoth
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is eating. It's the T-Rex is going to get the most of the meat.
Hmm.
We'll each get our own little piece of like a rib.
Hmm.
That's what I think. It's
Yeah.
not to be depressing, but it's probably something like that.
No, but what's interesting is, and somewhat ironical, is that um, in the hands of the Republicans, AI could be used as a bulwark for conservatism. And when I say conservatism, I mean it in its true sense, in that you think of
So
Dr. Roger Scruton.
I'm gonna pull up the Woodrow Wilson link. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you think of Dr. Roger Scruton, late Dr. Roger Scruton, who said that a conservative is someone in first principles is someone who conserves. Well, what do we conserve? We conserve what is beautiful. Well, what's beautiful? That which is worth saving and preserving and conserving for future generations. And wouldn't it be an irony that this new technology, which threatens to destroy everything, actually might be the vehicle that preserves everything and conserves everything for future generations? That's really an intriguing concept about AI too, isn't it? That if it's applied in the way that you say the Republicans might use it, or I should say more properly, conservatives would use it, um, that could actually end up preserving and conserving culture, whether it's Americanism or Western culture, going all the way back to the ancient Greeks or the Old Testament, versus these other people who just want to destroy everything, tear it all down, and are basically nihilistic in their approach. They have this utopian vision that they're going to tear everything down and replace it with something else. And we've seen enough of this something else to know that it's not very good for mankind, has something to do with destruction of 7/8 of the world's population, has something to do with destruction of food, destruction of energy, and indeed destruction of all useful technology, useful in the sense that it advances human endeavor and flourishing. So, not to overstate it, but it seems to me when I'm looking at the coming back to the election, seems to be a pretty clear choice, maybe a clearer choice than there has been in a very long time for Americans in terms of what do you want the future to look like. I have a quotation here from James Madison. He says, where an excess of power prevails, property of no sort is duly respected. No man or woman is safe in their opinions, their person, their faculties, or their possessions. And that kind of describes what's going on with the Democrats right now, doesn't it?
I agree with everything you said. Like I said, I always try to check it at the door and try to, but no, I agree with everything you said. I think it's pretty clear that they're an anti-human death cult, and
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't come across as unbiased if I walk into a fight. I'm like one side's for America, the other side's Satanist. It's like, well, you can't. you can't be conf
But they've drawn the lines for
no, no,
you.
they again, I agree with everything you're saying. It's just in general, I'm like, I can't be surprised though if people look at me and go, I can't reach across the aisle. He says we're death cult. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, no, I see that. I get the Woodrow Wilson quote. Since I entered politics, I have chiefly had men's views confided to me privately. Some of the biggest men in the United States in the field of commerce and manufacture are afraid of something. They know that there's a power somewhere so organized, so subtle, so watchful, so interlocked, so complete, so pervasive that they better not speak above their breath when they speak in condemnation of it, which is an insane thing for the sitting president to say. That's
Hmm.
that's maddening. 14 years later, you have
Yeah.
Smedley Butler's War is a Racket, and then 30 or 29 years after that one, you have Eisenhower's, and then a year
Yeah.
later you get or 2 years, 3 years later, you get Kennedy popped. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's so that's what it seems to be something. But back to what you were saying is their actions are that of like when you I don't know, say for instance microbiology, a class I hated, but whatever, petri dishes, right? It's there was ways to induce growth. You'd put nutrient rich agar, you'd put it in like a sealed container, you turn up heat, light, and humidity. All the stuff where like you want it to stuff you don't want in your own home. You don't want like a humid attic, right? It's gonna be
Right.
moldy. But for the case of microbiology, you put the thing in there, some nutrients, some whatever, some sugar, some fat, some water, heat, humidity, warmth, light, all this stuff, and it grows. And then when you were not just having a control experiment, but let's say when you had to clean the things afterwards so that the next class could use them, there couldn't be anything left. It wasn't enough that you just scraped all the agar out. I mean, you had to boiling hot water, like bleach it, put it in an autoclave, which would steam it to or heat it to death, and then you put it under like some like intense UV light, and it would, truly bleach the surface of it. Now, you and I are both kind of in agreement that one party is for the growth and flourishing of the not to sound like a nihilistic misanthrope, but the bacteria of humanity. One wants
Hmm.
it to grow. One wants it to go more kids, more tax write-offs, or more tax breaks for people having kids. Build more homes, build more schools. And well, what if we run out of space? We'll use nuclear. We don't need oil. What happens after that? We'll go to space. We're gonna just go forth and multiply, if I were
Right.
to use a quote, right?
Hmm.
Go be
Hmm.
plentiful.
Right.
The other one is more of, and I don't doubt that there are some true believers that really do. I'm not going to say that they're all Satanists, right? That I would imagine there are a lot that really do look at it and go, yeah, yeah, we're using up all this. I get it. But I think they're kind of useful. I don't want to call them idiots because I think that that's how you get no discourse is when you start calling each other like
Right.
idiots.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there is another group that just remove titles, remove the English language, remove symbols you and I recognize. Just look at it as like a petri dish. Less energy dense materials, no more oil, less coal, less we want it's going to be windmills that kind of don't work. Less the fruits of God's earth, meat to grow strong and to get protein. No, it's lab made synthetics. Looks like it's made out of an eraser and like ground up butterflies. It's no, there's no nutrients to it. Um, yeah, are you you're a man, you're the alpha, you're strict and you bring home the bread, and mom is more loving and caring, and she takes care of the family, and together you guys make a perfect nuclear family. And the other one says if you're a man and you ever feel the desire to want to lift weights or shoot guns, you're a demon. That is toxic. Here's a knife. Chop your dick off.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or don't have kids. You don't need kids. Okay. Don't grow. You don't need to be spending anything else, tax everything to death. You don't need to protect your own land. You don't need to go forth and multiply. We need a one-child policy. We don't need to go to space. We're polluting other planets. Elon Musk, that's an article from a couple weeks ago. Elon Musk is polluting. To me, I would look at it if I was just examining two petri dishes. I go, that one's really going out of their way to make sure the agar grows. The other
Mhm.
one, it's not just that they're not going out of their way to make it grow, where they, like, hey, push it more into the heat. It's not just that they're not trying. They're spraying Clorox on it.
Yeah.
And guess what? I'm not an independent viewer. I am one of the bacteria, and it's not two different petri dishes. It's one, and everyone I know and love is on that petri dish.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
not a trillionaire with 9 wives and 100 kids. I get it. But one of them wants to take a lighter to the petri dish, and the other one's like, we're going to keep growing. And then we found another petri dish. We can go to that one too.
Hmm. Hmm.
Well, the other side is you're handing me the most simple of choices.
Hmm.
Like, don't do be for growth and expansion and everything. And then I might listen to be like, yeah, well, maybe we should have some more socially progressive laws. But you're handing me, I don't even have to defend Donald Trump's take on X, Y, and Z. Very simply, he and Elon Musk don't want a holocaust for humanity.
Right.
You're not making it a tough choice. McDonald's or Burger King? Well, I don't know. How are the fries at Burger King? Well, no, also at Burger King, if you go in there, they're gonna chop your feet off. I'll go anywhere
And
but
feed them
Burger
to
King.
you.
I'll go to the McDonald's that's shut down. I'll eat the fries off the floor simply because I don't want my feet chopped off.
Right. Yeah.
That's kind of how I view. I don't know where I was
Yeah.
going with that. That was quite a spiral, but
Yeah. Well, you brought up the point about be fruitful and multiply. And um this is something that occurred to me in looking at the Democrats versus the Republicans is that there's something fundamentally anti-American about the whole Democrat approach and that you described, and that is, if you think about what the Republicans are saying as conservatives, um, it really ties into American originalism. And when you look at at the originalism, at the founding documents, what the founding fathers wrote about, the Bible was the most quoted source of those guys who basically created America, wrote the Constitution, the Federalism Papers, and all of that. And the same "go forth, be fruitful, and multiply" is in American originalism. It's in the Constitution. It's in the American dream. It's in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's in those original principles. And so this is why I say the Democrat approach is truly anti-American, because fundamentally what America is about and what has made it great, arguably the greatest idea ever in the history of let's say human politics and human flourishing, is this idea that anything is possible. There's a going forward. There's let's create more. And Of course, there's so many examples of people going from nothing to everything. Elon Musk is one of them. So is Jeff Bezos. So is Zuckerberg, for example, who seems to be leaning a bit to the right these days, which is happy
yeah.
news. But I mean, you see my point. There's something fundamentally anti-American about the Democrats, and yet there's something fundamentally American and even biblical in terms of the universe being universe of abundance. And
Yes.
God created a universe of abundance. There's very little talk of scarcity
Oh,
in the Bible. Everything is about abundance. And we have to think in terms of abundance if we're going to be able to live lives that are free and that are prosperous and that pursue happiness,
I think
in
Alan.
my opinion.
Yeah, and I think Alan Watts said it. He's like the idea of scarcity is like not in nature. Like,
No.
there's no lacking amount of pollen.
Yeah. It's a major cause of conflict too, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
The
it's
illusion of scarcity.
correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's power projection, but in nature, I mean, number of eggs a fish hat. What about what about not a dandelion? Is it a dandelion? What's the one that you blow and all the stuff comes off of?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
The spores.
in
Yeah.
sport, scarcity doesn't exist. The number of planets in the habitable planet, number of stars in the galaxy, the number of galaxies we can see. There's no amount of like limited real estate. We're acting like we all live on Manhattan Island. And it's like, no, you're not entitled to a penthouse on Fifth Ave. But if
Right.
you just want a home, hey, this is like one little tiny island. It's 13 miles long. Here's the US. Like, go out there. Go wild. I feel like that's the more we're gonna grow and we're gonna go to space mindset. The other one is we're all on this island. And by the way, the people in the penthouses are not going to give them up. So what we have to do is kill most of you. What? But my natural urges are to have sex and have children and grow. Well, that's
Hmm.
evil. So you need to hate yourself. So we're going to
Yeah.
kill most of you. And then those of you that still exist, you need to be in a state of just constant self-beratement and hating yourself and your very nature. Everything about you is wrong.
Hmm.
You feel like a man, you want to be a man, bad, 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 bad.
Hmm.
It's from its very core, it's self-hatred. It's
Hmm.
self, which is the root of really all things bad. It's self-hatred and it's destruction. There is no creation. It's cancel culture doesn't create anything. All you're doing is constantly chopping off more of the hair. And it's like you're gonna get down to the scalp
Hmm.
eventually.
Hmm.
And so in that sense, yeah, I mean, it really is an easy choice. It's my only hope is that there is enough. I think, and perhaps I am naive in this, I do think Elon Musk is an altruistic person. I could be completely wrong. I have no idea. I'm willing to admit that. But also, altruism that can kind of change. I'm more confident and more, I don't know, assured when I go, no, he wants to do his space exploration. He's playing with his toys. He can't have the US implode.
Right.
He wants the thing to keep going.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
I could say I'm a good guy and I want my internet to keep working, but the reality is it's how I make money on the podcast. So if someone else is using my computer, hey, our interests are aligned. I'm also keeping the computer up and running. You can call me a good guy. It's not because of that, but hey, whatever. I I hope that if there are enough forces, and I would imagine I don't believe that I don't think Bezos just had WAPO pull the endorsement for Kamala out of nothing. I would
Yeah.
imagine that Elon probably talked because Jeff Bezos has Blue Origin, his space company, not as well known as
Hmm.
SpaceX, but it's a great book called Space Barons by Christian Davenport. Musk wants to be more of the explorer. Bezos wants to kind of build like the Eisenhower interstate system, but of space.
Hmm.
Different strokes, different folks. I would imagine he probably talked to him and it's like, hey, if you want to keep doing your thing, like this has to survive. Because once you hit what, 100 billion, 200 billion, I don't think they're pulled in by money anymore. I think they want legacy.
Right.
And I think after money comes power, and then after power comes legacy. And
Unless you're George Soros.
unless you're a demon from hell, yes, of course. Well, he wants a legacy of sulfur and fire. But like, I, so then it comes down to tomorrow is, how much fraud are we going to see?
Yeah.
And I
And will
am,
AI be used to commit the fraud?
and to combat it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I think things are going to unfold tomorrow that are not going to be fully declassified for like 50 years. I
Yeah.
think that there's probably the fact that Donald Trump's still alive and that Elon Musk is allowed to buy Twitter and have all those. And you pointed out what I always point out to people. Space is the high ground. You don't just get to put satellites up there, which are also kinetic kill vehicles. You don't just get to put that up there because the US is like, well, if you want to do it, you can do it. The NSA bought out a construction company who built a apartment on a hill nearby Fort Meade back in the early 2000s because there was line of sight to the headquarters. That was just line of sight, and they bought it and said, "You're not putting apartments there." And I think it's still
Hmm.
sitting there as girders.
Hmm.
You can't build the skyscraper next to the White House. Why? Because you could get a gun.
Yeah.
You don't just get to go into space and have a shell of kinetic vehicles. And because the US is like, well, if you wanna. So my point is someone signed off on that.
Yes,
You
for
don't
sure.
just get to buy Twitter, which we know through the Twitter files, we know through the Biden Harris administration having backdoors in Instagram and Facebook. You don't just get to buy the digital town square, which is the talking piece for the entrenched state power. You don't just get to buy it and then take off all censorship protocols because, well, technically he has the money. Someone or a group of people signed off on that. The
Mm,
high ground, buying Twitter, and Trump is still alive. Those all tell me that, back to the tsunami analogy, we're just seeing these waves crashing, but there
yeah.
is a wall of support. I don't know if it's intelligence. I don't know if it's military. I don't know if it's financial benefactors who'd rather stay out of the limelight, which I feel like Bezos is more of that. It doesn't seem to want to be out there. I would say that there is a mighty large coalition behind the Trump Musk group,
Mm,
and they might be good guys. I would say more pragmatically, they probably all have families and don't want to see the U.S. devolve in a
mhm.
civil war.
Well, it's hard to say who Elon Musk is. I mean,
Sure, we have
he
no
might be a
idea.
good Samaritan, right?
He might
But
be
then,
evil. Who knows?
yeah, I mean, Jesus said we shall know the tree by its fruits. And right now, his fruits are pretty edible.
Hmm.
They look pretty good. And even Jesus said, "Don't call me good." You know, there's no such thing as a good man because we're all fallen. We have frailties. We succumb to temptation. Uh, Musk's temptation might be that he wants to be, like you say, a Columbus. He wants to be known throughout history. He wants to be a giant of history. He may have already reached those heights, but of course, his name will not stand through history if history is totally erased. And so that may be why he's motivated to conserve
Hmm.
history and to be a history maker. And I think the world needs people like Elon Musk. I believe God puts them here at certain times for certain purposes, and he's living that out. Is he a perfect guy? Well, no. But I think if we look overall at what he's doing, by and large, I would say a lot of what he's doing is in the best interest of humanity, on balance. Of course, that could change, but what I see him doing, you mentioned Bezos, and I mentioned Zuckerberg earlier. One interesting byproduct of the way Elon Musk is conducting himself is he seems to be influencing other high net worth
Hmm.
people, including Donald Trump.
Hmm.
I've seen a change in Donald Trump since he sort of joined forces with Elon Musk, and I would say, let's throw in RFK Jr.,
Hmm.
right, who recently talked about him being that he prayed for someone, he prayed to God for someone like Donald Trump to come along. So you sort of tie all these things together. If you're a person of faith, as I am, maybe you start to see AI as being part of a bigger picture,
Hmm.
that's part of a bigger plan that's beyond all of our comprehension.
Hmm. Yeah, I do start to see it as, well, you also start to see it as the hand of God.
Yeah,
You're like, this
yeah,
is all.
yeah.
So, you know,
We're all out here trying to control everything. And then, of course, I'm sure you have moments like this too. You're trying to control everything in your life, and all of a sudden something happens. You go, oh, wow, I really didn't have my hand on the controls. Somebody else was working the
yep.
levers,
Yeah.
right? Which is not a mean, doesn't mean that you try and drive without your hand on the wheel.
No,
It's
but
just that
it's,
maybe you don't grip the wheel so tightly,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Sometimes the gears interlocked perfectly and
Yeah.
you're like, that's awesome, but I don't think I did that. You know what I mean? You're like,
Happens
that's,
to me all the time,
yeah,
sir. All the time.
that's times if like, I'll be like visiting my parents. My mom will be like, "Oh, did you clean the counter?" And I'll be like, "I didn't do that. I did not do that. I don't know who did, but it wasn't me." Um, but dude, we got to wrap it up for now.
Okay.
I'm an idiot and I scheduled multiple shows today, and I specifically stopped doing that this year because I wanted to let each show be able to run as long as it could. I wish we could do that right now because I'm thoroughly enjoying this. So I'll make a mental note to not do that again. Dude, I'd love to have you on again sometime. That was awesome.
Yeah,
That
it
was
was great. I really
informational.
enjoyed our discussion. Wish you all
Absolutely.
the best with the show.
Thank you so much, sir. And I'll email you this link. And yeah, man, let's stay in touch. I'd love to have you on again. So that was
Thank
awesome.
you.
Thank you so
God
much.
bless.
You as well, sir. Guys, please go in the description. Please go follow his podcast, Mr. Leighton Gray. Thank you for your time, sir. God bless everyone.